Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're diving into some really interesting material from Doctor Who, which suggests that the key to handling some everyday ailments might already be sitting in your kitchen.
So let me just start with a question. Have you ever thought that your kitchen cabinet could, double as a medicine cabinet? We're talking about things you probably have right now, like garlic, celery, and ginger. And according to the source material we're looking at, their use goes way beyond just flavoring your dinner.
So let's jump right in and explore the remedies and the core philosophy in Dr. Who's material. I think it'll give us a much deeper understanding of this traditional approach to wellness. Okay, first up is garlic. Now, the source material we're looking at really zooms in on two main uses for this powerful little bulb. One for tackling coughs and another for soothing stomach issues. For a child's cough, the source describes this really fascinating method. You slice a garlic clove, and you actually apply it to a specific point on the sole of the foot. It's called the Yongquan point. You bandage it on before bed, but here's the key. You have to remove it after just 2 or 3 hours. That's super important for protecting a child's delicate skin.
So, to be clear, this garlic on the foot thing is specifically for what the source calls a wind-cold cough. The kind of cough you might get after being out in the cold. And get this. The material also says you can apply it to a point on the wrist for mouth sores. Interestingly, it mentions that a small blister might form, and that's apparently part of the process. Now, for internal stuff, like an upset stomach, the approach is totally different. You'd eat 4 to 5 roasted garlic cloves a few times a day. Okay, next up, we're moving on to celery. The source material connects this one directly to managing blood pressure.
But hang on, before we even get to the remedies, Dr. Who makes a really important distinction. The research that's mentioned in the source is talking specifically about Chinese celery. That's the kind with the really thin stalks and a much stronger flavor. It's actually unknown if the thick, crunchy Western celery most of us are used to would have the same effect.
So the source actually lays out 3 different ways to prepare it. First, there's a simple tea for blood pressure. Second, a juice with a little bit of honey, which is said to help with both blood pressure and cholesterol. And then there's a third method, a celery and rice porridge, which is for something the source calls lingering heat.
So, what on earth is Fu Rei? Well, according to the source, you can think of it as this kind of heat that gets trapped in your body over the summer. And the idea is that this hidden heat can sort of pop up in the fall and make you more likely to catch a cold. This celery porridge is supposed to clear that heat out before it causes any trouble.
All right, our next stop in the kitchen pharmacy is the yam. And while you might just think of it as another starchy vegetable, Dr. Who's material points at some really remarkable uses, especially when it comes to blood sugar and just general vitality. The source shares this great little anecdote. There was a man who was worried his blood sugar was a little high right before a health exam. He was advised to eat a small amount of steamed yam every day. And the result? Well, after just a few days, his blood sugar levels had dropped and he totally aced his checkup.
Now, yam is also a star player in a traditional soup called Si Sheng Tang, which translates to 4 spirits soup. It's the mix of several herbs like Job's tears and lotus seed, and it's at the center of another really powerful story in the source.
And this story is about one of Dr. Who's own patients, a 78-year-old woman. As part of her overall wellness plan, she was advised to make this 4 spirits soup a regular part of her diet.
So, fast forward 2 years, she comes back for a checkup, and the results were just remarkable. Her blood sugar, her blood pressure, even her uric acid levels had all returned to normal. And beyond just this one story, the source also notes that yam is generally believed to be good for your skin and hair, and even to help with memory. Okay, let's move on to our final ingredient, ginger. In the source material, this one is presented as a really powerful stomach soother, specifically for different kinds of diarrhea or dysentery. Now, to really get the remedy, we first have to understand the condition it's supposed to treat. The source talks about something called qi bai li, or red and white dysentery. Now, this isn't about color in the modern medical sense. It's a traditional way of classifying the issue based on whether there's too much or too little bile affecting the stool's appearance. So the source actually details 2 different remedies. The first one is a simple drink made from ginger and aged tea, and it's said to help with both the red and white types. The second, which is a brew using white plum and honey, is for a more specific condition that's described as hot dysentery. Okay, so we've looked at all these very specific remedies. But now, the source material pivots to something much more fundamental, a core principle that really explains this entire approach to healing.
And this is a question you might have been asking yourself. For some things, we got specific amounts, but for others, it's pretty general. So why is that? Well, the source addresses this directly, and it's a huge part of the whole philosophy.
It all comes down to this core principle, Shi Yao San Fen Du, and that roughly translates to the idea that all medicine, even natural food-based remedies, has some degree of what's called toxicity. Now, this doesn't mean it's poison. It means that every substance has a powerful effect that has to be respected.
The source even cites an ancient text that explains how this works. The goal isn't for the remedy to be a 100% cure. For instance, with a very strong or highly toxic remedy, the idea is to use it to fix about 60% of the illness. The other 40%? That's up to your body's own healing power, with support from lifestyle changes.
And that is the ultimate reason Doctor Who avoids giving out universal, one-size-fits-all dosages. In this system of medicine, treatments are highly personalized. They're tailored to a person's unique body constitution, and that's why getting a professional diagnosis is just so important.
So the most important takeaway here is this. Food can be an incredibly powerful tool for wellness, but all these remedies exist within a very complex system. True wisdom is about balancing this kind of knowledge with knowing when it's time to see a professional. Thanks for watching.